15 বেশি নেবেনি 15 বেশি নেবেনি
বরং কম যদি নেবে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ কম নেলে କିଛି ଦେଖିବା କ'ଣ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରାଇସ୍ ଫ୍ରାଇଜ୍ ରଖିବା କୋଉଠି ସେ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମଟା ଦେଖାଉନି ତ
এইটা ফাইল চেঞ্জ উপরে যে ଅଛି জাস্ট চেঞ্জ নাও
so I'll go by Uday sir
তারপর স্যার দেবে।
oh first kit welcome back. Thank you so very much for an excellent lunch. But then we also know that we probably lost quite some time in the first half of the day, but for very good reasons actually. We got excellent presentations, excepting mine. I think the two presentations, they still overwhelm me, and that also indicates that how rich a scholarship could be. So with that, so we start the next session. The only issue is that there will be some kind of a time constraint. And so we have three papers to be finished in just 60 minutes time, 1 hour. So what I do is I should request the three presentations to take 12 minutes each. So that we'll have some 12 to 15 minutes, but then because if you speak less and speak in a more sort of focused manner, there'll be more time for discussion. So 12 minutes, we'll start with Deepak Misra, Kirti Ranjan, Ashish Sanapati, and Amit Basantra. Their presentation is on towards a sustainable and equitable development of Odisha agriculture. So please.
Thank you, sir. After three excellent presentations, I'm a bit scared actually. I doubt whether I'll keep up the quality or not. This is the chapter towards sustainable and equitable development of Odisha agriculture. We four people are actually writing. The team is led by Professor Misra, and we three friends, me, Ashish, and Amit, we are writing. Basically, what I'll do here, I'll just focus on few, points, mostly few tables, and then I'll talk about the trends, and then the way forward, so that I'll wind up within 10 minutes. The chapter contents are like this. We'll talk about the agrarian structure of Odisha, agriculture production and productivity, the trends.
Louder, little louder.
Then agriculture diversification, cost of cultivations, marketing and post-harvesting process. Then how we can transform this rain-fed agriculture, or we'll have how we can do more on that. And finally, we present an alternative vision for agriculture development in Odisha. Why do we need actually a vision for Odisha agriculture? There are a few points actually. In fact, traditionally defining development, it means the process, the transition process where the share of agriculture declines, yet it remains dynamic, productive, efficient. But when it comes to the Odisha agriculture, we have a very curious case. Here, of course, the share of Odisha agriculture in national income, I mean the state GDP, has declined. It declined from around more than 60% during 70s 80s now to 20%, but it still backs around 50% of labor force, the total employment. And if you look at every aspect of forest agriculture, you almost find a gloomy picture. Every aspect. If I find anything cozy here, in anything pleasant here, that will be reflected in my face. Believe me, every aspect you will find that it is lacking. There is a problem of swollen bottom. There is, I mean, on just every aspect. Therefore, we need a vision. Now, here what I'll do, I'll just talk about some tables and then the key points. Looking at the structural change and agriculture, what we found that is, of course, the sector's contribution has declined over time in state GDP, but within the sector, the crop sector still dominates. Though its share has declined, but it still dominates. One thing positive that is happening here, that the fishing sector is actually growing. among all allied activities, the fishing sector is growing. But importance of forestry and logging, that has also significantly declined. And I mean, the livestock and fishing is one sector that is somehow showing little impressive picture. Now, coming to the growth dynamics of agriculture sector, you know, just like Indian agriculture, Odisha agriculture is also suffering a growth stagnation. You know, from 2013-14 onwards, the growth rate of agriculture and allied sector is just like 1.5%. And within that, the crop sector, that is the agriculture, is suffering a negative growth. It's having a negative growth. The only thing that is that is backing this 1.5% growth is the growth of fishing sector, which is actually growing at a growing at an impressive rate of 11%. Now, this during this intensive liberalization period, the whole sector is growing. I mean, after this 2003-4 onwards till 2020, the the growth is simply just like 2.5 to 2.8%, and that is mostly backed by this the growth prospect of fishing sector. Now, coming to this agrarian structure and land question, the access to land is not just access to the the one of the inputs. Rather, it is much more than that. Access to land, in fact, signifies access to a wide range of uh, 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 properties, including both social and political power. Now, if you look at the land distribution and class-wise distribution and ownership of land, what we found, very interesting picture here. There is a drastic decline in average size of landholding, and there is a the problem of swollen bottom. That means there is a continuous land fragmentation where the small and marginal holdings nearly account for 90% in Odisha. I mean, that is really a severe question. And uh, there is also a perceptible decline in the share of large and medium land holdings. Now, again, the looking at the ownership rights, all this, what we found that the area under tenancy in Odisha is much higher than that of national average. In fact, the numbers, if I put the numbers here, between 1980, 81, 82 to 2019 and 20, the the tenancy share under tenancy is consistently increasing. It has increased from 9.98% precisely to 30%, like almost like three times increase. But at the national level, where I mean, during the same period till 2003, at national level in Indian agriculture, the the percentage of area, I mean the area under tenancy was declining, while in Odisha it was increasing. Of course, after 2003, in Indian agriculture also we have it started to rise again. So this is the picture. And when you come to the terms and conditions of tenancy, what we found, share tenancy still dominates here, and though it is slightly declining, but still dominates. And the third category, I mean, share tenancy, then fixed rent, and then there is one category called unspecified terms that is emerging now, where the terms and conditions are not clear. So that means that the much of the tenancy found that 62% of irrigation potential that is being created in the state is actually utilized. I mean, the total potential created, only we have utilized till recently, that is the 62%. Yeah. Now, uh, coming to this, in this context, this irrigation development, what we found actually, that the districts which are rain fed, they are more diversified in terms of crop diversification. I mean, there is one conundrum here, that rain fed agriculture more diversified, irrigated agriculture, mostly the coastal belt, they are kind of growing a monocrop, following a monocrop kind of thing. Mostly they are growing paddy. So if you I think we have to little bit changes we have to make there when we put the policy on crop diversification and irrigation. What actually we need, whether we need crop diversification or we need surface irrigation development, because of course both are strategies to minimize production risk, both are strategies to double the farmers income. But when irrigation leads to kind of monoculture, rain-fed agriculture is more diversified. So in that context, we have to be a little more careful. Okay. Uh, Coming to this gross return and cost of cultivation, what we found, Odisha is, I mean, in terms of paddy, Odisha is one of the lowest in the country. Look, here what we have done, we have taken just two definitions of cost, A2 and C2, and here also we find very interesting picture. If you take A2 cost, then the average returns over cost is around 90%. But the moment you take C2 cost, which includes the imputed the family labor, all these things, which is a far better comprehensive measure of cost. If you take C2 cost, the average gross returns, that simply comes down to 27%, 28% from 90. And if you compare that with other states, I think the only state that we are actually doing better, faring better in comparison, that is West Bengal, where it is 6.2, and we have having 28%. But other states like Punjab, Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Assam, they are all having uh, much higher average returns. And in terms of other crops, maize and ragi, here also, in fact, in case of ragi, we have negative returns. The only crop where we are actually faring good is arhar and moong, the green gram. In case of arhar, it is 81%. I mean, taking the C2 cost. Of course, over A2 cost, it is little higher. And in case of green gram, that is moong, we have having 52% of gross returns. So there are again, if you look at the contribution of various factors to farm income growth, what we found, that it is only price effect and technological productivity effect. The contribution of crop diversification is almost negligible. And if you look at the degree of crop diversification over the years, it has been static, in a static in absolute sense, the crop diversification. And yeah, so almost every aspect you find, there is a gloomy picture here. Odisha agriculture is just I don't know what policy we are actually putting, but there is no development at all. Uh, so keeping all these facts together, here we have made some policy focus. Uh, One is, the public investment in agriculture should be stepped up substantially, and the rural provision of rural infrastructure and connectivity. Uh, Crop diversification and diversification specifically towards high value crops must be encouraged. Farmers must be incentivized to go for it, and it's a serious question. And when it comes to irrigation, there we have to be little little careful what kind of irrigation we actually need. Whether we should focus more on rainwater harvesting, or we should focus more on the surface irrigation like canal network, because that actually leads to monocropping. And seriously, that leads to a kind of monocropping where we are actually growing more water guzzling crops like paddy, which is more which is highly vulnerable to climatic risk. And also the average returns from paddy compared to other crops like the pulses is much lower. And yeah, another policy policy suggestion that we are making here, that going back to our indigenous cropping pattern, what we used to have in the past, we must go back to that, of course within the framework of technology, modern technology. Why? Because that would solve multiple objectives here: fighting climatic change, increasing gross returns, as well as boosting food security. Tenancy reform and tenurial security is need of the hour, and that's a long pending issue. Even the farmers, in several meetings we heard the farmers, they are also highlighting this point. So that is something we need. So these are few policy suggestions. Of course, if there will be more suggestions, we will make appropriate changes in our chapter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have taken just about 14 minutes,
Yeah.
so we have about 6 minutes for any sharp
Yeah.
questions or comments, please.
So I guess you're also covering fertilizer.
If this anything is missing here, so that is deliberate. It is there. Fertilizer, yeah. Showing 6.
So I think you should also look at this recently in the Western NSS data. So when you look at basically input and output of the different kind of farmers, small, medium, large, farmers in India, because we are talking about the doubling farmers' income. Okay, so that's basically the notes of both the state and center. So when you look at the input cost and output, so we found that basically the small and marginal farmers, and to some extent the medium farmers, okay, the semi-medium farmers. So they are basically not, they can't basically doubling their income. The input and output, basically the very less benefit they're getting. Okay, if you compare the input cost with output, but the large farmers are basically getting the more benefit. Okay, and the second one, we look at that in terms of input cost, because we are talking now about sustainability agriculture. Okay, going back to the organic fertilizer. Okay, so although we have been pumping huge amount of money for fertilizer, okay, chemical fertilizer. So because we have one policy in India where we have less amount of money, we have to take devoted for that kind of, I think I forgot for some compost or something there, basically the organic fertilizer. Okay, so here, so we are looking at, okay, suppose you put only 1 rupee in the organic fertilizer, at the same time you're putting basically how 2,000 rupees, 10,000 or 1 lakh rupees in the basically the chemical fertilizer. So when looking at that, the use of expenditure on the fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, the organic fertilizer, the farmers are making in the different categories of farmers, even from bottom to off. Okay, the poor farmers to off farmers are looking at the quintile. So we find that, okay, most of the farmers, those are in the lower quintile, and the basically the margin small farmers, especially I'm talking based on the NSS of 2019. Okay, so basically they are most of the expenditure on the chemical fertilizer. Okay, and which is highly subsidized. So if you talk to the, okay, now you talk to them, okay, let us move from chemical to organic fertilizer, it could be a difficult transition because they're completely contributing to food security. Okay, it will be a very difficult transition from them to completely move to the chemical to kind of sustainable agriculture.
That will not also be economically viable.
Government has actually identified
That is-
areas like Ganjam, Kashmir, Nayagarh, and all these areas for this organic farming and all. We know it is actually beneficial from point of view of environmental safety, and also on the other hand, it gives nutritious foods. But still, as I said, you need a counterfactual for every policy. So you're talking about carrier scheme and all organic farming, whatever we do. You need a counterfactual. That you were actually mentioned that the 2019 NSS data says that the expenditure is this, and if you want to compare the organic farming, how much you are getting at it, and who is getting. That is important.
Yeah, secondly, I'd like to point out here, see, the soil-based income which we're talking, I did a systematic review which I could publish next month. So I was looking at this integrated nutrient management, balanced nutrient management, and organic fertilizer. Okay, I never found a study in economics field.
Mhm.
So most of the studies are coming from the agriculture scientists. Okay, either it's a field trial or it's a trial in the lab.
Hmm.
Okay, mostly. And we find that there's some evidences is there for integrated nutrient management and balanced nutrient management. But there's less evidence for organic fertilizer with different kinds of crops. So when there is no evidence, so it's very difficult to say that okay, how it's going to be benefit the farmers.
So for that you need training and all this, right?
No, actually,
Any programs you want to conduct, you need
No,
training.
there are two.
Somebody is doing that. It's not that somebody is not doing. But as I said, you need
No, but
to.
you need the budget and allocation. Budget allocation is very high for the chemical fertilizer than the organic fertilizer.
But Odisha is not beneficiary of that. The fertilizer subsidy that we are actually providing, Odisha farmers are having very less. In fact, the farmers in North India like Punjab, Haryana, they are actually taking a major chunk of that subsidy. And Odisha agriculture has a typical problem. What we have 95% of farmers, they are marginal and small. In fact, marginal is like 88%. So it is like a kind of subsistence agriculture. So there is no problem of utilizing more fertilizer. Let them utilize.
Did you look at credit as well?
Sorry?
Credit.
Credit, yes, it is there.
So whenever
It is there,
small
but-
section of the criticizing the optimistic idea of doubling farmers' income, it is possible.
That's the point.
Not because in India, state were telling that doubling farmers' income. So use the small section where it is possible.
It
Even
is-
you have a large number of small and
Look,
larger farmers.
Look, in a very practical sense, we
I know it's not possible.
we cannot double the farmers' income in
I know
Odisha.
it's not possible. So you should try
So
it
some-
out.
Somehow
We cannot
can
increase
augment.
it even by 20%.
Yeah.
I am a farmer, I am saying from the field.
No,
So,
that's why right.
Let's not go by that. That's a very
No, I think he has one point that this is a marginal farming and which is actually
told
true
you
for
it's subsistence
most states. So if you see the agricultural census of India, the recent data, that shows that more than 80-85%, this has been there since 1950s in fact, that is dominance of marginal small. But how much of that they are going to use, let's say, chemical fertilizers, that's a question.
Actually,
to be
I
verified.
frankly
Just
speaking-
one second, I think Himanshu also has some.
I think Sir was responding to it.
No. Was it?
Oh, you just.
So very briefly, I think, time.
When we are talking about Odisha, government of Odisha when advertising for, I'm not an agriculture specialist, but when going to foreign, like Chief Minister has gone, they have 3 points to highlight for Odisha's development for 25 years. The first point was we have achieved the food, which was we are very food shortage, but now we are food surplus. That point, how you are taking that, because you are showing a very gloomy picture of Odisha, but they are showing that is the best picture in the country. So that one point. Second point, if you can touch with what the government is doing, second green revolution in Eastern India. If that part is somehow
Millet mission.
green revolution, second green revolution,
Second green revolution.
second green revolution, eastern part of Modi is telling from last 5 years. So how it is for next 36, how it will looks like. So that point may be added.
Some of these policy claims and what your data shows. Because the discrepancy
There is actually a discrepancy there. On food question, the surplus being available to the farmers of the whole population, it is because we are of course producing more paddy, not in Odisha but elsewhere, and that surplus is effectively available to whole lot of people in the country. So in that sense, we are like this 1 rupee rice. It is not just we are producing more and that's why we are giving to the people.
That is just
No.
my suggestion. You can now
so
we are not concerned about the production. Now we are going to production to nutrition. Now there is a shift of from
So I
production
don't
to
know,
nutrition, now nutrition, balanced nutrition.
I don't know if government is making that policy claim or that success. Then it is living in.
Do you think that we are producing less
No.
paddy than we take?
No,
We
actually our
certainly
productivity.
produce more paddy than we consume. Certainly, definitely.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
But comparatively, our productivity is quite less compared to other states.
Productivity is less.
Yeah.
I have
There is
one
no dispute about
observation.
it.
It might
But
have to
we
do
are
with,
producing
Quickly,
more.
maybe,
political economy aspect. Actually, I've been like traveling this in Udaipur side for this documentary movie that I made on displacement.
Mhm.
So there I came to learn one very fascinating fact about the this agriculture, and that is like changing hands. Now, most of the fertile land or the downstream, basically canal land, are now taken up by this kammas and redis from your coast. I mean, basically coastal.
Yeah, this Raigada and Kuraput. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And this actually this is happening in your Kalahandi region as well. This
Yeah.
Lower Indravati. Now most of the land had gone to their hands.
Mhm.
This is first political economy, first redistribution that is taking place, and it is now stopping there actually. Now these people are also now aspiring for political capture. Okay. Now I was talking to Lingas Pradhan, he is one of the tallest leader, basically, our leader from Odisha. He was saying that the person who owns the Vikas Institute, he had come here as a tenant, and now he has a big empire, and he was actually lobbying BJP for MP ticket. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is also happening. Now, this is really important because now we are creating irrigation, and ultimately that irrigation is not actually falling in the hand of Odia people. Leave alone, big land, laws and all this. It is going to the outsiders as well. They are redefining the political economy of that space. I mean, if there is space.
There are 3 points here. First, as I told, there is emergence of one group of landlords that is called absentee landlordism. They are having this land, they are not cultivating. They have gone into something else. So what they're doing, they're just putting this land to the people. Second, the terms of tenancy, again we have a major after this sharecropping, the major group that is emerging here, the unspecified terms. I mean, you don't know what is the terms of whether it's a share tenancy or fixed rent, and fixed rent in terms of kind or cash, you don't know. The terms and conditions are not specified, right? Third, the irrigated belt in Odisha is having the major incidence of tenancy. Now, this irrigation is not solving the problem. My point is, why I said there is a conundrum here, and we have to be very careful when we talk about this irrigation development and then crop diversification. Irrigation is actually leading to more problem. To be very specific, or it's bold statement. I don't know.
I think we, because of the time constraint, so we may have to stop it here. So you want to ask something?
But
very-
I think there is a point, what Pankaj raised, that's very important regarding this. The Telugu people, they are coming and they have captured the land. Yeah.
I have come across
So where this point is there.
Dinesh from your concept.
Yeah, Ramya Patel and that irrigation comes, agricultural productivity has increased. Not everything is exactly the Indravati project area, both fertilizer consumption and dairy production, dairy productivity, plus marketing. There is increased collection by the, so that has increased.
But
you
fertilizer,
are right. It has also been migration from irrigated areas is
Yes,
less.
yes, very simple.
Yeah.
Because it is, I'm talking about very distressed kind of migration. It is less, but yes, land is also transferred to other.
Also, just one single point. Just one. This irrigation law, it is actually being contested also in Odisha.
Yeah.
Like whatever displacement related protests are happening,
That is because of
80% of them are actually irrigated dispossessed people who are protesting the very idea of big dam, medium dam, and all this. So that is also actually
Yeah.
frustrating why we are
I think so just very quickly, yes.
That we see the agriculture with the income from the farmer is moving all over India. Not happening. If it is good in terms of food production, it is increased. What is the opportunity cost of producing so much food? That really is the fact. Third is employment. You see, this employment is another outcome of the farming. And the fourth one is, I thought that are you making some connections with the nutrition? Because mixed farming, now Odisha is doing much better than other Gujarat and other things on nutrition. You see the NFH is quite data. So they are it's doing better. Maybe mixed crop is helping us. And this monopoly, this irrigation will bring monopoly, it will bring huge investment, and then distress will happen.
no,
Because we have seen
we had a kind of indigenous, our indigenous cropping pattern was quite diversified. My father is a farmer. He used to tell me like we had bajra, mandia ର କଣ ଇଂଲିଶ ଟା କଣ ମୁଁ ଜାଣିନି, millet,
Ragi, yes.
ragi ଏସବୁ ଗୁଡା କରୁଥିଲେ, but now they're all growing paddy. And what happened interestingly, I think during 2006-7, our side is like irrigated region, so canal renovation ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଥର ପାଣି ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଗଲା. So they all of them they just went for this green ground, and they got huge quantity and production that was completely like yeah. So after that the farmers they wrote to the government that you don't give us canal irrigation after this kharif season, so that they will grow moong. Moong was part of our cropping pattern long before. So that's why my point is like, let's go back to our own system. We had that system. Let's go back to that. Of course, within the framework of technology, we'll have a diversified system, but of course we'll use modern technology. Regarding this fertilizer consumption, absolutely I don't have any concern. We are using less fertilizer compared to other states, and we are also getting less fertilizer subsidy. So in that sense, we are not Odisha farmers are not liable on government of India.
Okay, maybe with that we sort of, and this is interesting discussion. I didn't want to stop, but then there are other presentations. So thank you so very much. So we move on to the next one by Professor U.S. Misra and Basant Panda.
ছবি আপনার সেট কলে দিছিও মু কোন করিবি এ তো অমরেন্দ্র দেখেব জি দেখে
ତମେ ଛବି ଦେଖିବାକୁ ମନା କରୁଛ?
Let us present it in the lab so that others can see if somebody.
so I have mailed it to you. Can you retrieve?
Yes. ଏଟା ଚାଲିବ ଯେହେତୁ ଆମର କିଏ ଦେଖିବା ଦରକାର ମୁଁ ଲଗେଇନି।
ତମେ ଦେଖିଦେଇଛ ସିନା ଆମେ ଦେଖିବୁ।
ନା ଆମେ will connect.
ନା ଦେଖେ ତ ପାଇ ଜିମେଲ ରେ ଅଛି
ହଁ ବହୁତ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ
ପଠେଇ ଦି ତତେ just now I sent.
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଦୁଃଖ ବନ୍ଧୁ
ଏବେ ଆଉ ଥରେ ପଠେଇଛନ୍ତି ତ?
ହଁ
ବୁଝେ ବଚା ଦିଆ ଆସ मेरे दोस्त
मेरे हमदम
ଆପଣ ପଠେଇଥିଲେ କୋଉଟା କଣ ନାଇଜର ନା ଓରିଶା ନା କୋଉଟା ପଠେଇଲେ?
ଅମରେନ୍ଦ୍ର ଜିମେଲ
ଦୁଃଖ ବନ୍ଧୁ ଆସୁନ ଏଠିକି
just now you see PPT
ମତେ ହତାଶ କର ଡିଟରମିନ୍ଡ
open and put it also.
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ବହୁତ ସମୟ ଲାଗିବ
No. He is doing drama basically. He wants to save it, recorded everything.
ମତେ ଭାବିଲି ଭୁଲ କରିଲି ଏଠି ବି ଗୋଟେ କ୍ୟାମେରା ଲଗେଇ ରେକର୍ଡିଂ କରିଥିଲେ
ବେଶୀ ଟାଇମ୍ ଲାଗୁଛି ତାହେଲେ
ନା ଓକେ ତମେ ସେ କାରରେ ପଳେଇବ ତ?
Came. ଖାଲି ଦେଖେ ଆସୁଛି ନା ପଛଆଡେ
ଆମେ ଲଗେଇନୁ ନା ତାର
ଲାଗିବ ନା
ସେ ସବୁ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଅଛି ଗୋଟେ କ୍ୟାପିଟାଲ ଇଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସିଭ ସଂସ୍ଥା
ଆଚ୍ଛା କଣ କରୁଛି ରିମୋଟ ଅଛି
କଣ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ
ଲାଇଟ୍ ଅଫ୍ କରିବାକୁ ପଡ଼ିବ
ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ପିଠରେ ପଡିବ ମୋର ଭୈରବୀ ଜାଣିନ ତମେ ବୁଝିଲ
এটা কাম করিব তো
Very good. Excellent. This gives me more comfort also. So I won't talk nonsense. लोग देखो ना तो तुम nonsense कहो ना.
Okay, so
So we should start the next presentation. Yeah. So the next presentation, Professor U.S. Mishra and Dr. Basant Panda. Please, sir.
Okay.
About 14 minutes. or
Yeah,
something.
sure. 10 minutes. Good afternoon, friends. This is, we move now from product to people, I can say. Okay. Till now, we have been discussing on product. Let us move to people. And that's why, this is a chapter which has to largely talk about the trends and patterns and, composition and structure of the state's population at large. Therefore, I say that, I'm reminded of Prime Minister's abbreviations in his initial phase. He was making everything into abbreviations. So there are one abbreviation which relates to this presentation is basically 3D. We talk about development, demography, and democracy. So if all the three you can address, you can always prepare a vision document very well, if all the facets are included. Therefore, I have borrowed from that kind of a discourse and titled this chapter as Demography is Destiny, tracing the demographic transition and its prospects in the state of Odisha. Given that what I will talk, I must tell briefly that I am actually going to talk not demography in one chapter, but demography involves, everybody knows, birth, death, and migration. But I have just added here, you can say, when I talk about death, a dimension that is aging, because of the fact that death is not happening as it used to be. We have the biggest advantage in all kinds of demographic determinant is in mortality. In fact, we have gained most in mortality. And in the recent celebration has been, we have gained in controlling fertility, which you must be reading in commonplace as discourse of, what is called replacement level of fertility. And migration has been an upcoming phenomenon. Now it has engaged much more social scientists than ever because of the fact that it has gone beyond the discipline of demography as migration shapes population structure, population characteristics, population dynamics at large. I can go on because there are many other theories which are actually coming and surfacing with greater energy these days because migration is emphasized. So the thing that I would be able to limiting in this chapter, one is population concentration, one is size and composition, the phenomenon of urbanization in the state, development I have written, but development I will look at it from human capability potential and optimal capability of the human population of Odisha, environment to some extent, and food and employment. This given, let us first start with, like in the beginning, we started the morning by a historical discourse, but in a historical perspective, if you look at this state has always actually shared a kind of a consistent share of India's population, more or less. And therefore, I have said it shares 4%, but normally any researcher would have lined up it with how much is the land area, which I don't write here because of the fact that I am not interested in the density of the population. Density of the population in India is definitely imbalanced because we have dense areas, we have less dense areas and more dense areas. And by going to complete 100 years, its population dynamic has always kept in pace with the national population dynamic in many terms. And its survival or means of livelihood has been agrarian, as we have been discussing just now. Then comes to one thing which you must be wondering why I write that bullet point called ODA language. This is something which is never discussed at large, but in evolutionary perspective, if a state's population you look at, it is important to see that in Odisha in historical times, what many languages were spoken and how many languages are getting spoken today. Recently, I have actually drafted a new piece on exploiting the language data from census, where actually Odisha state over time has been actually accommodating more languages than ever. So that's actually, you can take it positively, positively or negatively, depending on how you look at it. This is something about the historical pattern. The message on this slide is that Odisha state's population strength and share has been very much consistent in keeping with the national share for a long many years now. Now, this scope of the chapter will talk about population, age, sex structure, growth rate, and sex ratio, which is pretty bread and butter of demography if you look at the basics. And then the drivers of the demographic change, that is in terms of fertility, mortality, migration. But I have added one more thing, which is very important, is marital composition. Why I add marital composition is not because of its implication for reproductive potential only, but also the marital adversity. That is very important, because when it comes to marital adversity, it is about widowhood, divorce, separation. This proportion has been showing a changed pattern which needs to be recognized in the discourse of demographic discussion. The other thing is the household burden of demographic indicators. This is something which is very fresh and new to myself. I'm trying to promote this aspect in a more larger sense, in the sense that, many of the indicators that we talk about are very individual based. You must be hearing now in this SDG environment, everything for 1,000 population. And why I contest that is because as a statistician, I don't find that individual based indicators are always relevant, because of the fact that your numerator, whatever phenomenon, the denominator is not equally likely to be happening in the numerator. You talk about death, you talk about disability, you talk about anything. So I am nowadays focusing largely from two grounds, that every indicator, if we can, we should do a household based indicator generation. And that I can go on if you ask me why later. But here I'm talking about household composition, because in demographic transition, what people look at is the population density, growth, structure. But the household composition also equally responds to demographic transition, where there is a concentration, there is a change in the size of the household. Size implies dependency, dependency implies welfare, and then it implies inequality. So therefore, household compositions are very important to be examined if there is a chapter on demography. Then demographic dividend, which commonly is very popular, well known in circles of discourse these days. But the dividend in this particular state has been or not, has to be examined from education, employment, and youthfulness perspective. One is education, gains in levels of education. Has that gone into a, implied gains in employment or, gainful employment? In fact, one of my work indicates all over India as well as in the state that, how much of mismatch is there between education and employment in our whole country. In fact, in recent times, I had drafted a paper on this, which people don't do. And people ask me, how do you examine the education employment mismatch? And my student who worked with me, I started her with saying, why are engineers sitting as bank clerks? That is the basic beginning, but where education and employment mismatch comes. And that will be examined in this particular state, how much it is, and then followed by the concerns that I raise overall with all this examination are pointedly three. One is there is regional divide, there is marginalization, and there is gender gap. Given the fact that there can be many others, but in a chapter I have emphasized on these three because there is a reason for it, that when we talk about development, these three concerns are very, very important. If we highlight, we get a better message. Now I will look at demographic things in relation to the national level, which is, if you take growth rates of India and Odisha, or if you talk about, simple growth rates, you can find out that Odisha has always maintained a kind of a situation which is better than the national level. Okay. So that way we can say that we are a state with not great bit of economic advantage, great bit of, development advantage. Still, in population front, we have done reasonably well compared to the national level. Of course, national level is an aggregate. How much we are better from other states is a different comparison. When it comes to more important part in compositional structure of a population is its age distribution. That is very crucial. And in fact, among demographers, we say that if you give me an age-sex distribution of a population, you are giving the horoscope for me to analyze its past and analyze its future. So this particular graph which you see It tells in absolute terms. I have not made it like people do in percentage and make your graphs with bars. This gives you a very important indication that you don't feel that 0 to 5 year, like your fertility has come down, but 0 to 5 year population by size. Because why, you can understand why knowingly I put this graph, so that I want to educate many more people, as not to say growth rates, but because there is a kind of a population momentum. We had a large size of large better reproduction in the past. There is reproductive age women more, which is called actually population momentum. Therefore you don't find 0 to 5 changing much. 5 to 14 had changed, but it has moderately come down. You have the best advantage that you see is 15 to 30 years of age. The 15 to 30 years of age has been maintaining a kind of size, which is really advantageous for the state. But at the same time, I must not forget to tell you, look at the 60 to 75. The 60 to 75 is actually a reflection of gain longevity that is going to make us live. And yesterday you heard people saying that all of us might live much longer than we are expecting. So it is basically a kind of preparation this chapter can make for all the middle-aged people to think that how should they plan for their life. Life is not going to be short, it's going to be long. So this composition given, the state's preparation can be in front in terms of preparing the youth for better employment and preparing the old for better security. These are the two messages which comes from this graph. In terms of drivers of change, yes, the total fertility rate is a celebrated one. We have reached even 1.8, that is below replacement level. Of course, below replacement level fertility, as much of it is a celebration, that much it is of threat as well. Why I will say you that, because now already thinking has started at wider circles as whether should we not have measures to turn back our fertility, because levels of fertility, as you see, countries like Japan, Korea have already started bothering. It has started bothering them. Can they reverse their fertility trend? But it is too early for us. We have really not, but we should keep a plan ready as to what we do if we need to reverse fertility. China is struggling today. Of course, we have not done the mistake of China, which China did by one-child policy, and then now reversing becomes entirely very difficult. Given the advantage in mortality, which is celebrated, which is welcomed, you see the reduction in increase in longevity in terms of reduction in mortality is largely contributed by infant mortality rate reduction and maternal mortality rate reduction. The trend that you see actually in Odisha in terms of mortality, there is a lot more which remains hidden. Of course, many of you must be getting hold of these rates from sample registration system or the life tables which are available. But what remains completely hidden in that is that today's 40-year-old will live how many years, and today's 40-year-old or 60-year-old is gaining what share of this gained longevity. This gained longevity is shared by many people, and the trend has reached that actually older people are going to gain more and more, because we have reached a threshold of reduction of early age mortality, which is go down, but it will go down very slowly hereafter. Therefore, majority of the gains will be by older people, and that makes us another challenge to prepare people with less morbidity, with less health expenditure, like yesterday you heard, and long life, with preparing them for economic security. 3 minutes, yes. So you have, this is just a kind of a representation which I will emphasize in my chapter, because many of the things I have not put in tabular form. This is just a demonstration that you will get everything in pictorial sense, so that you will get a pattern comparison. This gives a regional divide pattern in terms of what is the mortality pattern. U5MR is under 5 mortality. Now, in life expectancy, just a highlight of this graph, I must tell you that if you look at these graphs, what you see is actually greater degree of convergence. The convergence, you look at that first point at 1990, by 2020, the projection. The kind of convergence that we are attaining in life expectancy between rural urban area, between male, female, only the advantage of urban still remains in a big gap. It was much larger. So this should be celebrated, because despite the fact that the state has so much of skewed infrastructure and regional divide and whatnot, we say does not reflect in life expectancy, because there is a great degree of convergence. Now, in migration, I consider migration as a balancer. Odisha's advantage of migration, anybody might fight with me saying that why are you talking about people to migrate or not. Actually, I consider myself that migration is a very enabler. It's a big enabler. Only thing, we should enable people to migrate. It's not about talking people, Dadan and all that is a story of the past, but that distressed migration does exist. But if we can allow people to migrate, if we can make migration a successful phenomenon from the state has a very bright future, given the fact that it has a large youth population. You cannot overnight create enough employment opportunity for all of them. Migration is going to occur. It is ought to occur. Only thing is, our procedure and preparation should be about enabling them with the skills and potential that is required to earn better, make better income, and we can create an enabling condition in the state to migrate. There's nothing wrong, provided we can make them migrate, and successful migrants.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You mean that inflow is more than the outflow?
Inflow is there to the state, you are saying? Yeah, you have inflow to a certain extent, but outflow is actually more, not inflow is more. I'm not talking of inflow outflow comparison. I'm talking of the composition of population that you have for future. Should you prepare them to be migrant or not?
The moment you said that the remittance
Yes.
is a good year for the state,
Yes.
then you have to still look at that inflow and outflow issue.
Not currently, you don't have much. I'm talking of future. Currently, you don't have much. In future, that should be the strategy. That's my prescription. So this is about marital composition. In marital composition, you see a very distressing picture between male and female. In fact, you have longer life of women with widow, divorce, separated status. Therefore, there has to be measures to adopt. And these are not just figures of quantum. I must also hint at the fact that where are these widows? These widows will be largely found in socio-economically poor and disadvantaged households. Therefore, governmental measure to address this concern is an important urgency, because if it is not done, it has to be learned from other states, because other states and at national level also this has been getting focused now. You have household demography, which I want to say in very quick words that why I have put this graph, because I can put analysis of all kinds of variety. This is some emphasis which I want to make, is that these information are very important for any program of the government to be successful. You must understand that programs are targeted at households. And if programs are targeted at households, we must know more household features than we know individual features. And that is a demonstration I have made here, that how many households have elderly, how many households have single person household, how many are female headed, how many have widows, how many have no literate member. These are kind of characterization which actually will be presented in this chapter, which will be an input in a large sense to target and identify disadvantage in the population. This is the story of demographic dividend, which I have quickly done, and it has been already, I think, in circulation as celebration of it. So Odisha's less unemployment and more underemployment. And I would say that this PLFS data has become very doubtful now. People are not buying it because government does not want to give NSS data. And on PLFS, whatever analysis we do, we are with a suspicion to look at, but I cannot but present something which is actually available to analyze and say you that what is the education employment scenario in terms of demographic dividend. And this demonstrates that you have a very positive scenario, provided you can make the most of it. As the number goes up, you have better education and you can provide employment or enable them to migrate for better employment. So these are issues of concern in the chapter. I'll talk about education as regard education. How is comparison to be made for Odisha's education potential, employment potential, empowerment potential, political participation, and health and nutrition. On both sides of the slide, I have told my axis of analysis will be largely focusing on gender gap and on other side, the marginalization. So this is the axis in which I will make the entire analysis available in the chapter. This is a regional divide graph, which I told you that this is just a manifestation of what this is. I did a book on district level situation in India, from which actually I'm borrowing many of the indices, which that book is an edited volume, nobody will read. So I can actually make utilization of them in this exercise as well. To sum up, these are my 3 points. understanding demographic prospect and consequences in formulating better policy and program. No denial, no conflict on this. Demographic dividend and human capital and economic gain after the pandemic will be highlighted, because that this demographic dividend that you have, how much of it is actually adding to economic gain, and analysis will be done. And gauging the trend and characteristics feature of a population to evaluate quantum and quality of population with the evolving dynamic of change in livelihood and sustainable development. These are the messages from the chapter that will emerge in ultimate terms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Misra. That's a very detailed presentation. So we'll have about 7 to 8 minutes for questions. So brief questions.
That one table you have given
Yeah.
for the age distribution, it
Yeah.
goes up to 2021.
Uh,
So that forecasting you have done on some database.
That's available in standard, population projection made by Government of India, because in the absence of census, you have only source where you can tell future is Government of India's population projection. I don't do myself. That will not get credibility. I can do it, but it will not get credibility. So we have to trust what Government of India's expert committee on population projection gives.
Professor Raut, please.
Sir, your age distribution is also to 60 to 75 which is gaining.
Mm.
When in the health, are you making a connection in how their health disability is affected over the years? Are you writing something on that?
Yeah, you have a chapter. That's why I know that. No. What I am going to talk about there is not health. Particularly,
health and nutrition.
Health and nutrition, basically the information that is available in LASI and other,
Okay.
some
Because
indicative,
the
yeah, yeah. Not details of, no.
Even 0 to 5 years, we are showing there is no decline in that. Even the under 5 mortality and nutrition issues are there.
No, that is not will be in this
It's not
chapter.
that.
You're in your chapter.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
Anything else? Any questions? So if I may,
Yeah,
ask
please,
something.
yeah.
So I was wondering, like, you had a very interesting information about the different languages being spoken in the state. So are you suggesting that that number has increased over the decades?
Yes. I also promised you what I will tell. In fact, what happened is that nobody exploits the language information which is available in census. Unfortunately, we have only till 2001, 2011, 2021 census is not there yet.
Not there.
So we had done an analysis of evolving or increasing bilingualism and multilingualism in this country. And our motivation behind that was that why should persons speak two languages? And a very common thing which we observe, which everybody knows, but we wanted to generate an evidence to that effect, is that in case you will become bilingual, if the language spoken by you is a minority in relative terms, suppose I am speaking a small area tribal language, my likelihood of becoming bilingual is larger compared to a language speaking like Hindi. Therefore, Hindi speakers are less bilingual compared to non-Hindi speakers. That is one finding. But in our state, over time, there are more bilinguals. The growth in bilingual, not even multilingual, growth in bilingual is to the tune of 27% in Odisha, which is nationally about only 20%.
And
So-
what are these languages mostly, like you are also
Bilingual in
including-
any other language, because we are all Odia, we speak Odia definitely. So Odia, you take Hindi, Odia, Bengali, Odia, some other language you speak. So obviously you are bilingual.
Actually, in Odisha, no, you like enumeration is done properly. Most of the people are actually bilingual.
Most,
I mean, Patrasa has stayed in Purabhut for so long time. People don't call themselves Odia first. They call themselves Desi. That's their own language.
yes.
But that is never get mentioned in the census or in the report. That is a different question. So my one question is, we talked about the demographic dividend that we are supposed to be, but our demography looks very pale, and I mean, look at an indicator, be it health, education, and so we can't make sense of whatever democracy and demand, because ultimately this demography is going to create attractive demand, and which does not look very promising in the near future, to my understanding. So what kind of suggestion would be describing how to make this demographic burden that we are having now to a demographic dividend. I mean, skilled, well educated, healthy population. So, what is the
See, this concept of demographic dividend, when it was brought in,
yeah,
people had thought it in very absolute terms.
yeah.
But over time, it has gained a kind of a notion which is pretty relative. That's why now no debate, no fight is happening. That who lost the bus, how many, who lost the window of opportunity. Initially, the discourse in demographic dividend was more on that. Now, what it has moved towards is that is Odisha's demographic dividend better compared to Bihar? Is Odisha's demographic dividend better compared to Karnataka? The reason is what I situate the state as, even if we know that if we do not guarantee the quantum of the number in quality terms, you cannot get an expected demographic dividend. That's your concern. But that is, there is nothing called ideal. That how it is not becoming ideal, I can explain you that within the evolving labor market, the required skills, we don't know, we can educate people like we are opening colleges and giving degrees, but we must be making some betterment in terms of knowing what is required. Are we preparing our young to get a better skill or employment potential in the evolving market? It's not about what education you give. So in comparative terms, Odisha is not that badly placed. If you take indicators like health, nutrition, education, being in school or not, or in all these terms, they are far better compared to 10 states. At least 10 worse states are there when it comes to demographic dividend. And that's what I want. I'm not saying that it will be ideally better. That is not my concern.
Any further questions?
Yes, please, sir.
Just sharing experience from Maharashtra.
Yeah.
My village population is around 2,000. I was thinking about the situation of marriage and in my village there are around 150 boys who are not able to get married because they are small and married. They are unemployed. They may choose any path, worst path, or anything else. Are there any analysis of this?
That which you are saying is at a macro level triggered by sex ratio imbalance in ages. At a macro level, people are talking about
Sex ratio and
sex ratio and occupation. You are bringing in employment basically. But always as a demographer, I must tell you, the age at marriage is one parameter which we analyze. It is not that female age at marriage increase or male age at marriage increase. In fact, female age at marriage, always notionally we say education is triggering female age at marriage increase. In fact, female age at marriage increase is largely driven by male age at marriage increase. Because of the fact that I don't get an employment, I will not marry. So if my employment is delayed, my spouse, obviously, I mean, I cannot get married, I mean, to a girl of 16. Everybody wants to get married to a younger girl. But the problem is that you will have the gap, the spousal age gap. It will remain more or less. It has not changed for last 30, 40 years from something like earlier it used to be 3.8 to 4, has moved to 5.2. It's not reasonably high. So that is the reason where you say it will create a crisis. It will create a crisis, but it has its own way of adjustment. And this fear, which was done, fear mongering in 1991 census and 2001, there is sex ratio imbalance and there will be people remaining unmarried. I'm yet to see that people remaining unmarried. Only thing is the people are not believing in the institution of marriage and not getting married. That's a different issue. But they do have partners. There is no issues about that.
Sir, you mentioned about migration, the habitability of migration. Surprisingly, ironically, in fact, Odisha had first migration policy, Interstate Workmen Act.
Absolutely.
Okay. Despite the precedent it had set long time back in 70s when Dadan basically the term to define distress kind of migration. It does not see any kind of big change in the way migration takes place now. Sir has also worked on it. So the nature of migration has not changed much.
But it has become completely invisible, unaccountable. Why?
Yeah.
Because there are many reasons for it. In the state, if we are writing a vision document and when we don't emphasize or if we highlight, why I will highlight, there are reasons for behind that, why we should highlight.
Yeah.
The government bodies and policy circles should actually recognize that migration auditing is essential. Who are the people migrating? Where are they migrating? What kind of job do they do? There's no stock of data. It is because of COVID time you got some figures, but literally you don't have anything.
That also they don't disclose.
They don't disclose. That's true.
They have this act in the place and they're supposed to report, by the report to the DM, concerned district magistrate or labor officer. They don't do it.
That's it.
You see, RBI is giving already that Bihar is receiving remittances. Bihar government is in the denial that their people are not migrating. This is our status. Nitish Kumar is saying they are not going, but RBI already is giving that Bihar government has been receiving better remittances.
So,
Yeah.
some migrants came to here, few days also.
Yes.
So that's why taking all these things to the recording in the records not possible for this person.
Sir, that is what you are talking of seasonal and short-term migrations. Share is very high. I do agree with you. But other migration, which is also a permanent or semi-permanent nature, is also increasing substantially. We have no auditing or accounting of that.
During COVID, no, panchayats were supposed to record the data. Just for information, I'm sharing this. If government could have qualitative those data, they're supposed to report to the
Yeah.
That number would have given the exact number of the migration.
I am a member of the Administrative Data Committee in Government of India myself, so I should excuse myself that I shouldn't tell you secrecy. What are things we cannot do and do? They say you know it, don't say it. We cannot give this data, we cannot give that data. I know lot of information. Being a committee member, Government of India has. And literally why I'm telling you with confidence about Odisha, because I know those figures. That is really
in my
true.
panchayat, it was 1:3. And every
Yes,
one person
yes.
from three, they were like migrants.
So if I tell you how many households, Odisha's urban households have at least one migrant, can you tell me? What percentage of Odisha's urban households have at least one migrant?
80%
Based on the census data or
No, based on government data, which I know, but I cannot be analyzing it. They can't give me but of course I know what is the status of it.
My information, this is 26.
Absolutely right, sir. That's about 32% in urban areas, and rural areas it is about 17%. In rural areas, of course.
17.
17 have at least one migrant. So
are you talking about intrastate or interstate?
any migration.
I mean, a person moving from rural to an urban is also a migrant.
Migrant, yes. But that's a migrant in the household. Huh? Bhubaneswar, it might be honest. I'm talking about Odisha urban. Bhubaneswar urban is not same as Mayurbhanj urban.
Commuters also migrants.
Commuters, we don't say. We have a definition of migration. Commuters are not.
I think maybe with this we move to the next paper. Thank you very much, sir. And always it's a pleasure listening to Professor Misra because he is very well informed and he responds to all the questions in detail. Thank you so much. Very, very much. So next we have Dr. Chandrasekhar Bahinipati and Sudhamini Das. I think Chandra will present.
Climate disaster.
Chandra needs no. I think Chandra needs no introduction. He's very well known to the Odisha Academia and also at the national level. He's one of the most productive scholars in terms of number of papers he publishes and the number of conferences he attends. He's a very, very young age.
Number of projects
he has done.
number of countries visited,
Number of countries visited. So
Seminars conducting.
number of papers reviewing and proposals reviewing. Avi chelsea baki?
Chandra, about 14 minutes, 14 minutes. Yes.
So good afternoon to everyone. So I'm going to talk about the chapter 18, environment, climate change, and natural disaster. So this will be a chapter outline. It will be introduction and environmental issues with respect to human health, like water, air, marine plastic litter, and the states policy towards these negative externalities. So we have not done much work on that line so far, because I'll tell you, we have written only 60-70% of the chapter. So then we're talking about the climate variability and rural livelihoods. Mostly we're talking about the impact of climate change on agriculture. So there are not much studies in Odisha, specifically in Odisha, that okay, which can estimate the impact of climate change on agricultural impact. There are few who count that it could be less than five studies were published in the international journals, like peer-reviewed international journals, less than five. But at the India level, could be 30, 40 papers taking the entire country as a whole. So I'm borrowing the things from the country level. Those are any things could be borrowed for the state of Odisha. So the Odisha studies, those are basically focusing on the Odisha impact of climate change on agriculture. So then we are looking at the policies undertaken to protect the rural livelihoods. What are the agriculture policies being taken as part of the, as you know, that's all old wine in new bottle. You have agriculture policy. At the same time, you write a disaster management policy. At the same time, you write a climate change policy, state action plan on climate change. If you look at the agricultural component in all the three reports, will be more or less same. Okay, will be more or less same. Okay, so that's why I was talking to the people who are writing agriculture chapter or other chapter. I think that okay, there could be overlapping of the things. So let us not repeatedly write those things, and let us see how we can interlink the chapters. And talking about the climate smart agriculture, what are the climate smart agriculture practices we have? So basically, which I am basically again depending on the peer reviewed literature about that, okay, what are the adaptation mechanisms, what are the climate smart practices across the state. Although there are few studies, again, I'm talking, but in case of Odisha, it is large studies, around 10 to 15 studies we have. And water saving technologies or energy saving technology or agrometeorological information, which is largely happening across the India. The provide. So then we're talking about the loss and damages from natural disaster, mostly cyclonic storms and floods, where we have information. Okay, mostly after 1980. Before 1980, mostly I'll tell you, most of the indicators you'll see information will not be there. Okay, some years you'll see that population is largely affected, some millions of people affected. Suppose you look at the economic loss and damages figure, will be not available, it's not reported. Okay, I don't know whether we have estimated or not. I don't know, but its figure is not available. Some years you'll see that okay, economic loss and damage is there, but population is not affected. Figure is not there. Not that population is not affected. Figure is not there. Okay, not reported. Okay, so given all these caveats, so we have estimation for the cyclonic storms and floods. Okay, and drought, again, lack of information, because you have only information the crop area more than 50% affected. Apart from that, we don't have any other information with respect to drought. Okay, that's very surprising that okay, I don't know why, not only in Odisha but across the countries. If you look at any state, apart from that, you don't have any other information. So, okay, but I don't know why the other states in India also not thinking about the other indicators of loss and damages. And suppose you talk about the other basically slow onset disasters, okay, like sea level rise, salinization. Okay, those disasters, even heat waves, okay, or the extreme temperature, slow onset disasters. So we don't have any information. Okay, what is the loss and damage with respect to that? Okay, I'll come to that, because recently in coastal erosion or displacement, So when it comes to the loss and damage, okay, there are many indicators with respect to loss and damage. I've written recently a paper on that. Okay, what are the methodological challenges we face across the country? Okay, to estimate different kinds of loss and damages, there's economic as well the non-economic loss and damages. So why we're basically not estimating many indicators, it's just ignoring, because that has a larger policy implication at the international level. Because at the international level, you're talking about the compensation, but you don't have figure to show that, okay, this is my loss and damage. Then how will I ask the compensation? Okay, I'll tell you the NDMA, the 6-7 months before we had a meeting with NDMA, the member secretary, I'll not mention the name, member secretary was there, 2 member secretary. So they're telling that, okay, in the last Glasgow meeting, when the entire developing world was telling them, entire developing world, basically the policymakers were telling the India and to basically stand for the loss and damage compensation. India has never stand for the loss and damage compensation, which I'm talking off the record. India has never stand for the loss and damage uh, figure, because they don't have figure to say that, okay, how much loss and damage they have. We don't estimate. Okay, so basically in the end of that, I'm talking about, okay, why we don't estimate the loss and damages. Okay, and what is the challenges how we should do that. And then we're talking about the disaster management action plan or climate action plan and Sendai framework. So basically we have started with the Yokohama, then Hogo framework, then now we have Sendai framework. So how our disaster management plan or the state action plan on climate change, how it actually inclination or synergy with the Sendai framework. Then basically we're talking about the roadmap for enhancing state resilience capacity. So how much time do I have?
About 6-7 minutes.
Okay, I'll just go through quickly. This is the natural disasters, type of natural disasters, the state level was a flood, cyclone. Then I put that, okay, name of the disasters with respect to different districts. These are figures. So these are basically, I'm trying to see that, okay, number of disasters from 1804 to 2020. So what are the kind of cyclones and floods, number of years that we experience cyclone floods in Odisha from the different sources. And you can see that, okay, number of years we have experienced the cyclones and floods. So earlier we used to experience less than 5, but now in almost, suppose you look at 1970 and onwards, almost every year we are having either a cyclone or flood. Okay, maybe I don't know whether it's because of reporting. Earlier we don't report that if there is a flood. We don't have any information on that. That could be the reason. Or this is basically number of districts basically affected by the cyclones, floods, and droughts. But only thing that, okay, but I'll tell you that, okay, SRC, that OSDMA, so they are regularly used to publish from 2000 onwards annual report. So where basically they used to report that, okay, loss and damage, what are the indicators they may estimate? At least you get the information, okay, with respect to cyclone, flood, drought, heat wave, and fire accidents. They used to mention some kind of data. But after 2017, they have not published the report. Then it's very difficult to know after 2018 onwards how much the loss and damage we have, except the 2019 Fani cyclone, because we just basically estimated by ADB. So that is we have information, but apart from that, we don't have. Okay, at the public, like me, suppose I want to know that, okay, what is the information, but we don't know. So it's not reported. Okay, maybe they have some documents, memorandum which they might have submitted to the government of India, but actually it's not available in the public in large. So that's some information is still missing. I'm trying to get it. Similarly, we have reported loss and damage, extreme events, cyclones, floods, and droughts. So I'll just skip those things. And similarly, cyclonic storms, if you look at comparing the eastern part of India, which is basically West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. So Odisha is getting large number of cyclones. So you look at the right side, you will see that most of the time NA is written. Okay, some years there is a cyclone is reported. Okay, this is from the government sources. Okay, this information I got from the government sources. So most of the time there is a cyclone. Some human casualties around 245. Actual population affected in million, not available. It's 245 people. Casualty means there should be some 10,000 or 1 lakh people must be affected. Okay, but these information is not available. So similarly, these are basically 2 kinds of cyclone, super cyclone and Fani cyclone impact. We have just information, but only best thing that in case of earlier cyclones, we basically have a aggregate number. Okay, but from the Fani cyclone, we have a sector-wise impact. Okay, we at least estimate the sector. Earlier we used to have an aggregate number, and I'll tell you earlier what they used to do. Basically impact on the agriculture, that's basically estimated in the economic terms. houses damage, estimated economic, because that's the compensation they pay. Agriculture, they pay some compensation based on the hectares damaged. Agriculture, I mean, houses, they basically pay the compensation, kacha, pakka, and semi-pakka houses compensation. And in case of public properties, they basically repair it. They know the cost. So the sum of these three are the total economic loss and damages. Okay, there are many sectors are affected, but at least these three are the sum of the economic loss and damages. Okay, no other sectors are considered. Okay, that's a traditional approach we have been following. But from the 2019 Fani cyclone, so we have adopted a PDN approach, post-disaster need-based assessment approach. So therefore, we try to estimate different sectors. At least that was kind of advancement in estimations. Okay, at least first time I have seen the damage was estimated separately than the loss. Earlier it was the total economic loss and damages. Now I have seen an estimation that, okay, damage is estimated separately than a loss, and the different sectors are considered, and surprising to see that environment. Okay, the some sectors which have never been considered, the environment sectors which are basically considered in the 2019 Fani cyclone. At least they're trying to recognize. That's the kind of advantage that we're trying to recognize that these are the sectors also experience loss and damages. Okay, so since first they have to recognize, then we'll have methodology to estimate it. Okay, so this is the basically with respect to flood, which basically we get from the Central Water Commission. So basically from the 1955 to 2020, which is basically with respect to value of crop affected or reported economic loss and damages. And this is basically district-wise occurrence of the floods in Odisha. And similar drought, as I told you, I have only the number of drought years from 1961 to 2011-15, but mostly with respect to impact of drought, I have few information with respect to the districts, mostly 2010 drought and 11 drought and 2013 drought. So after that, very difficult to get it. Heat wave also somehow managed to get up to human casualties till 2021. Okay, so so which is basically I was looking at the heat wave plan, which was published in 2022 by the government of Odisha. See, in the right-hand side, I just copied that, okay, from that report. Okay, Dhenkanal district is, I think, so how basically here, you will not know that which is the middle district. Dhenkanal district, then you have Cuttack district, there's a middle, there's a bar, which you don't know which district. Okay, so it's very difficult to get, so they should have put that, when they basically publish the report, they should know that, okay, for the people I prospect, they should know that, okay, which district it is. Okay, if they could have given in the chronological order ABCD, I can guess that, okay, which could be the next district. Okay, now I can't guess it. Okay, so I think heat wave management, published in 2022.
What is the source?
Government of Odisha.
Can you not ask them?
Huh?
Can you not ask what do these
They might be
marks
having
stand
it.
for?
Huh? I'm not telling that they don't have. They must
That's how
have.
they've done, yeah. I got
No,
it.
there are numbers written on the top of the
I numbers are them. They know the district. They know district. But I'm telling that, okay, when they publish it, they should have checked it. Okay, so they should have put all the district together. So
Actually, the casual approach is highlighting that it's not serious if you should very good you should.
Number would actually
But actually, what is it's between Deccan and Kotak, there is another bar. Nobody knows actually who is.
No, I think
That is what
what
we
I
realize.
guess is that is actually if you are sort of projecting a kind of an expanded version of the picture, so all those things will come. So usually you miss the years.
yeah,
So this is a kind of a compressed picture they have
yeah, they
given.
compressed it. That's
So
that
it is
district
not the
missing.
government of India, Odisha, but I think it's more the guy who was printing processing. So in that printing process, you would have reduced. So in
So-
which you lose out on one.
So now I requested Amarendra to talk to those people and see that, okay, whether we can get the missing districts.
that data it is
Yeah,
essentially
we can
it's
get
a
the missing
compressed
districts.
picture.
No, it's a PDF version.
PDF version. So that data will be there. That's not.
Okay, and this is basically hailstorm and cyclonic wind, and this is basically casualties from the lightning, which is updated till the 2019-20. So this is basically I just mentioned about what is the challenges we face basically with respect to loss and damages. Basically, although we estimate loss and damages from rapid disasters like cyclone storms and floods, many sectors and indicators are ignored and not considered. Okay, even in the PDN approach in Fani cyclone, so we still not consider many indicators. And loss and damages for several slow onset disasters are not calculated. Okay, even in case of salinization, in case of sea level rise, you'll not find any figure across the India. Okay, what is the loss and damages? Okay, across India, not in Odisha. Okay, and various methods are adopted. Like Fani has a PDNA approach, and super cyclone has some other approach. Hudud has some other approach you followed. So how can you compare? Now the question is, comparison is not possible. Okay, because you consider the different kinds of sectors, you can't compare across it. Okay, so I'm just focus on the Fani cyclone. What is the major problem with the doing the PDNA? Because we don't have inadequate baseline data on socio-economic, demographic, and ecosystem. Okay, yeah, I'll finish it. So as long as you don't have information, so main problem is that we're not estimating district level domestic product. Okay, so see, when the Fani hit, it's not hitting entire state. It is hitting actually 10 or 13 states, inside districts. Okay, so what happens, as long as you don't know what is the contribution of each sector in the district domestic product, how can you estimate the loss and damage? You don't know their contribution. So how can we estimate the loss and damages? So therefore, in the Fani cyclone, they have to take the assumptions. Okay, even if those guys are estimating that the international India level also, they have to take the assumption. Even Surat, one guy did, he has to take the country per capita income multiplied with the Surat population. Okay, because there's no other way. Okay, so yeah, he has to do that. Okay, so that way we can do it. Okay, second, there's a lack of qualitative information on vulnerable communities, and sector-wise calculation impact and calculate aggregate impact based on loss and damages. Okay, in case of non-economic loss, and I'll not discuss much, but only thing I can tell you about that place displacement happening in the Kendrapada. Okay, the people are moved, basically Satabhai areas, people are moved 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, because of the sea level rise. Okay, but actually, we are talking about that they're moving because maybe the government is providing the land, but many indicators are never estimated. It's basically, sometimes the emotional attachment with the parental property. My emotional attachment with my parental property, I have to leave my parental property because of sea level rise. Okay, you estimate what I lost, but what is my emotional attachment to my parental property? Okay, I'm not telling that it can be economically valued. Okay, but that's not recognized. Okay, so many things similarly I have mentioned. I mentioned the many things which are basically not recognized. Okay, those indicators are not you're not recognizing. Okay, so apart from that, I've just mentioned about the climate change agriculture, which basically we're looking at, and in fact we're looking at also developmental interventions like MGNREGS, which is not basically for the climate change. Okay, how this could link to the different kinds of adaptation measures and other development, because I have written some paper on the DFID program, the Western Odisha Rural Livelihood Program, how this has linked to the undertaking different kinds of climate change adaptation measures in that particular region. Similarly, we have looking at the crop insurance. Basically, I was looking, okay, in case of the crop insurance, Odisha is doing better in comparison to national average. Okay, this is basically the figure from the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and the restructured weather-based crop insurance schemes. Those are basically implemented in 2016. So that's why data from 2016-17 to 2019-20. And the right side, I've just put the NSSO data. Basically 2013 as well as the 2019, the farmer situation assessment survey of that. If you look at that in the Kharif season comparison to Odisha and India, so Odisha actually doing better adoption rate in comparison to India. Okay, Odisha is doing better adoption both in the Kharif as the Rabi season. And if you look at I've just put the marginal, small, medium, and large farmers. Okay, this is I just borrowed this figure from my student thesis. If you look at that, okay, 2013 and 2019. Okay, so there is no much. So if you see, some of the states could have moved from the less percentage adoption to high percentage adoption, but in case of Odisha, there's not much changes. Okay, so we have the adoption rate was between 10 to 15%. It's both the times it is between the 10 to 15%. It's not moved up from the one bracket to another bracket. We're still in that bracket. Okay, and this is a dynamic of groundwater resources, water pollution. Okay, this is a Sendai framework. I'll just not much explain much on that. And these are the 7 targets we have. So only one target so far we are basically achieving, that's a reduction of disaster mortality. We are saving the lives, not the livelihood. Okay, because assets, income opportunities, or agricultural loss, which is still high, we are saving only the lives, the first target. The first one, other things are we are yet to achieve those targets. So, since I have less time, so I'll.
No time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chandra. I think it's always very detailed presentation. And he's a person with very careful eyes for a variety of sources, actually. That's what makes his study very impressive. He doesn't sort of focus just one
Yeah,
or two
please.
data source.
Why you have taken the district as the region? Why not the region, crop-wise region? For any assessment, crop-wise region is better than the district or the area-wise. Particular area, particular district, do not have the same climate, same geographical situation. Suppose from Dhenkanal to Ongu, it's a totally different climate. Geoclimatic changes happens from this area to that area. So that's why always it is better to have to look at the region-wise the damages, the crop damages, whether it's a crop damage or whether it is called the vegetative growth also. Vegetative growth also being affected by the loss of rain or the excess of rain.
Meaning climatic zone.
Yeah, climatic, the agroclimatic zone we have, but problem is that.
So why I'm telling you this? Because after 99 cyclone, we have learned from the different sources that we have managed to take the districts. Suppose a part of Patau district was really not affected the way Jagatsinghpur was affected.
Yes.
But we wanted to involve to take total Patau district. And because of my pressure, because I'm little politically better than the other people, so I could take entire Patau district. The real district was not affected to that extent. A portion of Patak towards Narsingpur, that was not affected. Patak towards the sea, that was affected.
Yeah, so I.
So, but that's why for every time it's a political intervention. Since you are all research scholars and doing research, you need to understand the political maneuvering and political manipulation in all these cases. Nowadays, in particular in the agricultural side, new individual that is the insurance. I could tell you, like your health insurance scheme, the doctors are taking every year or whether it's a real Kalyana Yojana or that. Aishma. They have planned their thing how to take the money from your family. Like that, insurance companies, particularly this crop insurance companies, 26 companies that they are operating in Odisha. So they have to keep the loss and gain. What is the real loss of the crop? If there is this in the month of August, actually we require 3 inches of water in paddy field. But that is only rainfall was 60 mm. So particularly during that season, our requirement is 3 inches water, but we got to 1.5 inches up of that. So already the loss of crop started from that day. Do not take that crop, what you have got if you have taken less water. That's why rich people they never calculate that scientific calculation on the crop loss and not doing that. And government machinery is also helping the insurance company. You know the arrangements. I don't want to assume that. So that's why don't you take the region-wise agroclimatic regions, and number 2, but if you take a sample study, always study yourself about this area. After culture and before rainfall, you make a study of that. You can give a better report than even NSSC. Nowadays, the NSSC is controlled by So, immediately, I am doing some different work in this. Different works I am doing it, but it knows it, and small institute. But it used to be without any bias, any impact that I cannot take this side, that side. I consult with the government because government informations you have to whether we accept or not,
we have to take all consideration. And also, if there is any mismatch, we have to study on that. So that's why my request is rightly, it's a very good analysis you have done. But unfortunately, all the time you are saying that we didn't get there, we didn't get this. After 18 happened, so 2018 based on this program. You are saying you need to return that. So that's why my request, because we want, unless we get the data, we can't improve our development strategy. We definitely can. The best development strategy is only best correct data. It's better than the dividend to be my request.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. That's an excellent comment.
Very good recommendation.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Today our digital diet is Bhubaneswar is supporting state in the climate change. And also on state we have so we may have more information, access to more information. We can coordinate.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to get more information.
One comments that Kanwar said, like, my experience in Maharashtra, crop insurance is a political tool. So it may go not district wise, it may go Vidhan Sabha, assembly wise, and other things. And you see that, and if you see that again the cycle, election year and between election years, how it happens. I have seen my village
Even
from
post disaster,
Yeah.
post disaster, it will increase. Then 2-3 years no disaster, because basis risk is the major factor. Yeah. Okay. So always there is if you look at the NIA data, NIA is something. Okay, data is like this only.
So if there are some hard copies, because data may not be there in the website, there are some hard copies.
Yeah, I just want to we just want to get it that those data.
There is one small point I want to ask. Like you are saying the 1980s, like prior to that period, you don't have this kind of information. So what about the colonial period? Because as you know, that Tirthankar Roy has used the climate, natural climate related disasters data and has come up with a book, so both covering India as well as much of South Asia. So how do and he has mostly taken data on the basis of rainfall. So that is one of his major distances. So any comments on whether the British time such database was better, richer, or more diversified?
No, actually, I'll tell you that we have information on the rainfall and temperature from 1901 onwards. Okay, 1901 onwards. Basically, we have earlier used to have less number of weather stations. I think 8, 9, then 13. We have now we have more number of weather stations. But somehow they basically do some kind of mathematical modeling to calculate district wise the meteorological people. So that's why we have information from 1901 onwards till today. Okay.
Which year?
1901.
1901.
Yeah, 1901 onwards we have information. That's a UK Meteorological Office. They have information which is publicly available, and even Meteorological Department also give you. But anyway, they charge you so much amount of money, but they'll give you the Indian Meteorological Department. They'll of course give you the data set because they'll have a God's point data set. Suppose you ask them, okay, calculate for me the district wise, they'll do that calculation and give to you, and they charge you some huge amount of money. Yeah, they'll charge you huge amount of money. Although you are
Arthur Patton,
Hmm.
which is work in that British period,
Hmm.
65 to
Hmm.
2000, 1931.
Okay.
His work and retired and became with this Andhra West.
Okay.
He had written climate changes, rainfall. He was making all the times, taking all the readings. So every year, every month, he was keeping the records. This is habit to them.
Okay.
So you can get it from Madras Presidency records, daily years. You can get from.
Okay. So with respect to the historical, I have not browsed much in history, but I have browsed the Gazette of Odisha, which is basically published by the Katak Press. Okay. So here we have very less information. if I browse some kind of independent reports or some kind of thesis which are written, so then I may get more information.
After 1863, his government would say, don't go for this railway connection. Make water coastal water. This government also.
So Amarendra, you have to help me to fill the data somehow to get from the SRC. So because after
So just a question for myself.
Yeah,
Not
please.
question actually.
Yeah, please.
What has to be done then? India is one of the hardest, Odisha is one of the hardest climate prone zone. And things are looking very bad. Last couple of decades, so many things have been Odisha, like anything. So now cyclone has become, episodic event.
Yeah.
And Naveen Patnaik takes all credit for managing that event. That is all what he does. So how to deal with it? What is the way forward? It is only like getting more data is enough to tell the meta.
But he's asking what is the future.
Yeah, I got the point. See, first one thing that I finished my presentation telling that we save the life. Okay, so we now to think of how to protect the livelihood. Okay, so we have done much work. We have done enough work in the state of Odisha that is protecting the life, not the livelihood. Second thing that we have to also start recognizing those missing sectors first. Then we will think of the policy.
Yes.
Okay, as long as we don't recognize those missing sectors, then we don't consider the policy. Let me tell you can I take 1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you, there is identity crisis of the migration. Okay, suppose when migrant workers move to Surat or Chennai, okay, so during the disaster period, so his identity card address is somewhere in Odisha, Bihar, or somewhere in Chhattisgarh. There's no guarantee that that fellow is there during the crisis. Okay, so that fellow will not be considered as an affected people, and he'll be denied of compensation. He'll be denied of relief because he has identity crisis because he doesn't vote in that particular city. Okay, so that is the paper is basically in Chennai flood. So the migrant workers denied for the relief because those guys don't have voting rights in that particular city. That's why they'll be easily denied. Okay, so as long as you first of all you recognize them. Okay, once you recognize them, then you'll think of them. Okay, so that's the main issue. We need to recognize those sectors were basically affected.
Why I ask this question? Because this climate disaster has to do with the idea of the development that we have, right? And the phrase that you have used, smart agriculture and all these things, basically it is again a kind of invention, but to mess up with the environment and the ecosystem, and then you ask the poor proletariat or peasantry adopt to this climate change, right? So that is what exactly I had seen in the some of the highlights. Put and this area. Kamla Pujari sir, this is for your information, chair and other people. He is the highest, he has a lot of organic seeds with her. And that is why she was given Padma Shri as well. And she's from Pura. But now this very much organic kind of cultivation is gone now. Now instead of that, we are doing a different kind of smart agriculture when we are trying to adopt climate. First you create a situation where you mess up with the climate, and then later on you are asked to adopt the climate. The entire that area is now basically springs are drying up because of the mine, all these things. So now people are switching there. So I just wanted to know, what kind of vision should be having with respect to this? These are very critical questions.
Yeah, that maybe I've taken that. Will address that issue. Okay, I'll tell you most of the things are old one and new battle. If you look at climate change agricultural adaptation measures, basically the words they're using, okay, they're putting under the basket of climate change agriculture. All the words are similar to the agricultural literature. You look at the 1970s, 80s agricultural literature, they use the same words in name of the agriculture technology, in our agriculture development. So now they're putting all those things as a climate change basket. Okay, old one in a new bottle. I don't think they have you. So, and second is that some of the adaptation measures which you call, okay, if they consider, so we don't have evidence that, okay, how these measures are effective. Okay, we just tell that, okay, these are the adaptation measures, people should take it. But where is the evidence that how effective these measures are? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So excellent discussion. And so with this, I think we shall break for tea and we have a talk. Thank you.
So it is complaining that this agenda is going on.
No, no, no. When it becomes worse, only it will be the address.
So I think maybe the tea will be outside.
କାଲି ଆସିନଥିଲେ ନା କାଲି ଆସିଥିଲେ
ସାର୍ ଥିଲା ନା ସାର୍ ଥିଲା।
ଆମ ଲାଇଫ ମେମ୍ବର କରିଦଉନ ନା 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 ନିଶ୍ଚୟ ନିଶ୍ଚୟ ଆଜି କରାହବ ହଁ
We were so lucky that it is primary and the company. If the person is a good type of ଭଲ ଲାଗେ ନା ହଁ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଲାଗେ एक वस्तु भी सीखी
Population studies. ଆପଣ ସବୁବେଳେ ଫଟୋ ଉଠେଇବେ ଫଟୋ 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 ଫଟୋ
ନାଇଁ ଏବେ ନାହିଁ ଆପଣ ଏବେ ଭେଙ୍କଟ ସିଂହର ଶୁଣ ମୁଁ କହୁଛି କାହାର କାହାର ଅଛି ବୋଲି।
କହିଲେ ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଛି ସେ 3 ଜଣ ଅଛନ୍ତି ତ
ନାଇଁ ଏବେ ଯୋଉ ରହିଲା ଆଉ
ଗୋଟେ ସେସନ ଲେଟ୍ ଚାଲିଛି
ଗୋଟେ ସେସନ ଲେଟ୍
ୱାନ୍
ଚାଲିଛି।
ସେସନ ଏବେ ଯୋଉଟା ହବ ସେଟା ମାନେ
ଆମେ
Pre-lunch
ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ
session
ଶୁଣନ୍ତୁ
finish
ହଁ
ହୁଏ।
ଯୋଉ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିର କେଶର ସାର୍ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ କରିବେ ନାହିଁ ଆଜି
ଠିକ
ପଭର୍ଟି ଆଲିଭେସନ ସୀତାକାନ୍ତ କରିବ ନାହିଁ
ଅଛି ବଢିଆ ହେଲା ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ
ଆଉ ରହିଲା ଯୋଉ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟଟା ଦୀପକ ମିଶ୍ର କରିବେ
ସେ ବି କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ
ହଁ ତାପରେ ଆପଣ
ଆଉ ତ ଠିକ
ନାଇଁ ତେଣୁ ଏବେ କଣ ହଉଛି ଯେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଏଜୁକେସନ ଆଗ ମୋଟୁକୁର ଭେଙ୍କଟ ନାରାୟଣ ତଳେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେଇଟା ଆଗ ହେଇଯିବ ତାପରେ ଆଉ ଦୁଇଟା ହେଇଯିବ
ତ ଛୋଟ
ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ ଭେଙ୍କଟଜୀଟା ପ୍ରଥମେ କରିଦେଲେ
ତାହେଲେ
କରିଦେଲା
ଏକା
ପରେ
କଥା ହେଲା କି ସେ
ତାପରେ
ତିନିଟା
ଆପଣ ନାଇଁ ତାପରେ ଆପଣ କରିଦେଲେ
ହଁ,
second
ଠିକ
ଟା।
ଅଛି।
ଟିକେ ରହୁଛି
No, no, I told him, so yours will be second one.
ସ୍ପେସିଫିକ କହୁଛି ଆମର ନେକ୍ସଟ ବର୍ଷ ଟାଇମ୍ ଟେବୁଲ କରିବାର ଅଛି ସେ ଅଛି ପୋଷ୍ଟ କଣ୍ଡକ୍ଟ ଆଉ ଫ୍ୟାକଲ୍ଟି ଠିଆଇଛି ମୁଁ ଗଲା ପରେ ଟାଇମ୍ ଟେବୁଲ ହବ
ମାନେ
ବୁଝିଲେ?
ନେକ୍ସଟ ୱିକ୍ ପାଇଁ ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟ ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଟାଇମ୍
No,
ଟେବୁଲ
so let us do this. First, Venkatji will make the presentation.
then
And
you
second is
make
yours.
it and you can roll
Second is yours and you can go. Yes.
Good evening, Mishra ji.
hi how are you
Fine, sir.
lovely I should have liked to see you here you are
Yeah.
looking like an old man now too older than me huh Venkat ji
Yes. Amarendra.
हाँ इसलिए मैं मिश्रा सर को दिया कि सर आप चेयर कीजिए इस सेशन को.
Oh, great, great, great. Yeah, that.
but we are running too much behind time try to finish quickly so that you know
Yeah. I'll do that.
साउंड ଟିକେ ଲଗେଇବା ପଡିବ ନାଇଁ କି ମୁଁ ଟିକେ ଆଣୁଛୁ ବକ୍ସ
Shall I share my PPT?
okay you can share
Shall we start, Mishra ji, or any? Mishra ji,
yes
shall we start or any?
just give me 2 minutes see that sound system others can hear
Okay.
ନା ସିଏ ରେଡି ହଁ ଗ୍ରାଫ ଫ୍ରାଫ କରିକି ଛଇଲା କାଲି କରିଥିଲା ନା କୋଉଦିନ କରିଥିଲା
କାଲି ତ ଭଲ କଥା ଆଉ କୋଭିଡ ରେ ଶାନ୍ତି ଖୁସି ହୋନି ଏ କୋଭିଡ ଭଲ କଥା ସକାଳ ହଉଛି
କାର ସକାଳ
କୋଭିଡ ଟା କାଲି ସକାଳ ହେଲା ଭଲ
ଆମ ଦରିଦ୍ର ସଜଳକୁ ଉଦ୍ଧାର କରିଦେଇକି ପଳେଇବା ସଜଳକୁ 2 ଜଣ ଅଛନ୍ତି